Hello everyone. Thank you all for watching the video. Wishing you all good health and peace. The first light of dawn slipped through the leaves of the vegetable garden, casting a soft golden glow over the rows of greens. Lai Tu Nuong stirred awake in her small wooden house, the air cool and damp with the scent of earth and dew. She rose quietly, her bare feet brushing against the rough floorboards, and tied her faded pink shirt around her waist. The familiar sounds of the countryside greeted her. The gentle trickle of the nearby stream, the crowing of roosters, the rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. She stepped outside, her woven basket in hand, and surveyed the garden that had been her sanctuary since childhood. The eggplants hung heavy on their vines, their deep purple skins gleaming like polished stones, ready for the market. This garden was her world, a place of memories, of her mother's gentle hands, of quiet endurance. Now it was her livelihood, her burden, and her silent companion. Lai Tu Nuong moved through the rows with practiced ease, her hands deftly plucking the ripest eggplants. Each one felt like a small promise in her palm, firm, smooth, and heavy with the season's yield. She filled her basket steadily, the weight growing heavier with each addition, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of her mother, who had once tended this same garden, her voice soft as she taught Lai Tu Nuong how to tell a good eggplant from a bitter one. "Choose the ones that shine like the night sky," her mother had said, her smile as warm as the sun. Those days were long gone, buried beneath the years and the earth where her mother now rested. Lai Tu Nuong was alone now, an orphaned girl carrying the weight of her past, with only the garden and the man who had recently entered her life, Mr. Chung. Mr. Chung was a quiet man, steady as the stream that ran through the village. He had come into her life unexpectedly, a carpenter from the next village over, with hands calloused from years of working with wood and a smile that felt like a rare gift. They had met at the market one rainy afternoon when he'd helped her cover her vegetables with a tarp as the sky opened up. Since then he'd become a constant presence, never demanding, always there with a kind word or a shared moment. He spoke of simple dreams, of building a better life, of crafting things that lasted. "I'll make you a proper chair one day," he'd said once, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "One that doesn't creak when you sit." Lai Tu Nuong had laughed, but inside her heart had trembled. She wanted to believe in his words, in the future he painted with his quiet promises. But she had learned long ago that promises, like the morning mist, could vanish with the first rays of sun. Her basket full, Lai Tu Nuong hoisted it onto her back, the bamboo straps digging into her shoulders. She adjusted her conical hat and set off down the dirt path toward the village market. The morning was alive with sound, the chirping of birds, the distant hum of a motorbike, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. The path wound through fields of green, past houses with thatched roofs and children playing in the dust. At the market, the air buzzed with the chatter of vendors and buyers. Lai Tu Nuong spread a mat on the ground and arranged her eggplants in neat piles, their deep purple a stark contrast against the faded fabric. "Fresh eggplants, 10,000 dong a kilo," she called, her voice soft but clear. The market was busy today, and her eggplants sold quickly. An old man bought a kilo for his wife, a young mother haggled for a better price, and a neighbor stopped to chat about the weather. "Lai Tu Nuong, when are you settling down?" the neighbor teased, her eyes twinkling. Lai Tu Nuong smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Maybe one day," she said simply, but the question lingered in her mind like a stubborn thorn. By noon, her basket was empty, her pockets heavier with a modest sum of money. The walk back home was long, the dirt path stretching endlessly before her, winding past the stream that shimmered like a ribbon of silver. Her legs ached from the journey, but she didn't mind. "Not too tiring," she murmured to herself, though her heart felt heavier than her body. The market had been a success, but the emptiness inside her remained, a quiet ache that followed her like a shadow. She thought of her mother, of the way she'd hum while tending the garden. She thought of Mr. Chung, of the warmth in his smile, the steadiness in his presence. And she thought of herself, of the girl she had become, strong but lonely, hopeful but cautious. Back at her house, Lai Tu Nuong set her basket by the door and stepped into the small kitchen. The room was sparse with a single wooden table, a clay stove, and a shelf of mismatched dishes. She lit the stove, the flames crackling as they consumed the dry twigs she'd gathered the day before. A pot of water went on to boil, and she pulled out a few eggs she'd bought earlier in the week. But before she could start cooking, her eyes fell on a new frying pan she'd bought at the market. A modest purchase, but one that brought a faint smile to her lips. She ran her fingers over its smooth surface, imagining the meals she might cook, the simple joys it might bring. But the yard outside was a mess, overgrown with weeds dotted with sharp thorns, and she sighed. "Too much to do," she said to herself, rolling up her sleeves. She stepped outside, a small knife in hand, and began to clear the weeds. The sun was high now, its heat pressing down on her as she worked. She moved methodically, her hands pulling at the stubborn roots, her mind drifting with each tug. But a sharp thorn caught her off guard, pricking her finger. A bead of blood welled up, bright red against her skin, and she winced, a soft "ouch" escaping her lips. She sat back on her heels, her finger pressed to her mouth, her eyes clouded with a quiet sadness. The pain was small, but it stirred something deeper, a reminder of her solitude, of the countless days she'd faced alone. She was strong, she knew that. But there were moments when the weight of her loneliness felt heavier than the basket she carried to market. The sound of footsteps broke her thoughts. Lai Tu Nuong looked up, her heart skipping a beat. Mr. Chung stood at the edge of the garden, his tall frame silhouetted against the afternoon sun, a small bag in his hand. "Be careful of the thorns," he called, his voice laced with concern. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning her with a tenderness that made her breath catch. "You're hurt, aren't you? Come inside and rest for a bit. Don't work so hard." Lai Tu Nuong nodded, her cheeks flushing with a shy warmth. She followed him into the house, her fingers still stinging, but the pain seemed to fade in his presence, replaced by a quiet comfort she couldn't quite name. Mr. Chung set the bag on the table and opened it, revealing a pair of white sandals adorned with a small smiling face. "I bought these for you," he said, his voice soft. "I saw them at the market today. They're not expensive, but they're pretty, and they'll help you walk more easily." Lai Tu Nuong stared at the sandals, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and joy. The sandals were simple, but to her they were a treasure, a gift, the first she'd received since her mother's passing. "They're beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Her hands shook slightly as she touched them, the smooth material cool against her fingers. A wave of gratitude washed over her, mingled with a bittersweet ache for all the years she'd gone without such kindness. "Let me help you try them on," Mr. Chung said, kneeling beside her. He gently lifted her foot, his touch careful and warm, and slipped the sandal on. Lai Tu Nuong felt her face grow hot, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never been so close to him before, and the intimacy of the moment made her dizzy. The sandals fit perfectly, their soft soles a stark contrast to the rough earth she was used to. "Do you like them?" he asked, looking up at her with a smile that lit up his face. She nodded, unable to find her voice, her lips curving into a shy smile. For the first time in a long time she felt seen, cared for, as if the world had paused to offer her a moment of light. But the moment was fleeting. Mr. Chung stood, his gaze shifting to the yard. "There's so much grass out there," he said, his tone practical. "Let me help you clear it. It's dangerous with snakes around." He picked up her knife and began to work, cutting down the tall grass and gathering it into a pile. Lai Tu Nuong watched him, her hands still clutching the sandals, her heart swelling with a quiet admiration. He moved with purpose, his shirt clinging to his back as he worked, the sun casting long shadows across the garden. When the pile was ready, he lit a fire, the flames crackling as they consumed the dry grass, sending up a plume of smoke that smelled of earth and memory. They worked together, their voices mingling with the crackle of the fire, their laughter a soft melody in the fading light. Mr. Chung handed her his jacket, his voice gentle but firm. "It's getting cold. Put this on, don't catch a chill." Lai Tu Nuong took the jacket, her fingers brushing against his, and felt a warmth spread through her chest. But beneath the warmth was a flicker of sadness, a quiet fear that this moment, like so many others, would slip away. "Can you stay tonight?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her eyes searching his. Mr. Chung smiled, but there was a hint of regret in his expression. "I can't, little one," he said softly. "Work won't let me, but I'll be back soon, I promise." Lai Tu Nuong nodded, though her heart sank, the moonlight in her eyes dimming like a cloud passing over the sky. As the sun dipped below the horizon, The garden was bathed in the silver glow of the full moon. Lai Tu Nuong sat on the porch, the new sandals beside her, her gaze fixed on the stream that glimmered in the distance. Mr. Chung joined her, his presence a quiet comfort in the stillness of the night. "You're beautiful," he said suddenly, his voice low, his eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Your hands, they're so pretty." Lai Tu Nuong shook her head, a shy laugh escaping her lips. "Not beautiful at all," she murmured, but her cheeks flushed with a warmth she couldn't hide. Mr. Chung smiled, his hand reaching for hers, his fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that felt both foreign and familiar. And then, without warning, he leaned in, his lips brushing against her cheek in a soft, fleeting kiss. Lai Tu Nuong froze, her heart racing, her face burning with a mix of embarrassment and joy. It was her first kiss, a moment she'd never imagined, and it felt like a star falling from the sky, bright and fleeting. "Has anyone ever kissed you like that?" he asked, his voice teasing, his eyes sparkling with mischief. She shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "Not yet." He laughed, calling her my little happiness, and the words wrapped around her like a warm blanket, filling the empty spaces in her heart. But even as she basked in the glow of his affection, a quiet fear lingered. She thought of his promise to return, of the life he led beyond the garden, beyond her. She wanted to believe in him, to trust in the future he hinted at, but the scars of her past made her cautious. She stood, stepping into the garden where the embers of the fire still glowed, their warmth a faint echo of the day's labor. The moonlight illuminated the sandals, their smiling faces a reminder of his kindness, his care. She smiled, but her eyes were tinged with sadness, a quiet longing for something more. A home, a family, a love that stayed. Would Mr. Chung return as he promised, his arms full of warmth and laughter? Would Lai Tu Nuong find the courage to trust again, to love again? Or would she remain as she was, strong and whole, yet alone beneath the moonlight? The stream whispered in the distance, the crickets sang their lullaby, and the moon offered no answers, only its silent silver light. For now, Lai Tu Nuong had the garden, the sandals, and the memory of a kiss, a small constellation of hope in the vast night sky of her life.